Now this is how I used to do my under eyes. And at the end of the night, I would come home and I would be like, why do I have so much creasing? Why? Then I started doing this and that stopped happening. The wearability of this technique is unbelievable. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex. I'm a self-taught makeup artist with a background in painting. So today I wanted to share with you some of my tricks for avoiding creasing. This seems to be something that a lot of people struggle with. I recently did this video up here about how to choose the right color of concealer to kind of like minimize steps and also make sure that you're using like the right thing for whatever your objective is. Highly recommend checking that video out. But so many of you were like, we need a creasing video. I have talked about this in the past, but this is gonna be like super in depth, okay? And this is going to apply not just to your under eyes, which, you know, I feel like is a lot of people's struggle because it's a very delicate area. You know, we get fine lines and all of that, and I am such a good example, such a good example. So we're gonna be using my dark circles, but you can apply all of these tricks to like forehead lines, laugh lines, anywhere that you might have a difficulty with creasing, okay? So we gotta start off with an annoying thing. Skin prep, all right? It all begins with your skin prep. There's a multitude of reasons that your concealer might be creasing or settling into fine lines or settling into lines or settling into areas that might be a little bit dry, okay? You have to be prepping your skin. So the way that I did it today, in the mornings, typically I don't cleanse, I just rinse my face with some water. And then today, just because like I was doing something else and my skin was like dry for a while, I just did like 3 little mists of this. This is the Bioma Balancing Face Mist. It has ceramides, probiotics, and allantoin. This is just like a hydrating mist that I like. If my skin hadn't been like rinsed and then just kind of like dry, if I had just like rinsed my face and immediately gone in with my skincare, I probably would have skipped this step. So just keep that in mind. Then I went in with my Prequel Vitamin C. I did 2 pumps of this, face, neck kind of situation, okay? Love this. We'll talk about skincare in another video if you want an updated skincare routine. And then I've been using the 9-ingredient face moisturizer. This is the D41 from Typology. I have a few different moisturizers that I'm going between right now, but I've really been liking this one. Very simple. Yeah, probably used like somewhere between a dime, like a large pea and a dime sized amount, somewhere in there for my whole face. So skincare, important. You should be doing some kind of skincare. If you're not, then that is where I want you to begin, okay? If you have any kind of settling in any areas and you're just putting makeup on top of like naked skin, then you gotta go to the beginning. You gotta rewind, go back, skin prep, okay? This video is going to be more so about techniques for makeup to prevent creasing. But we had to start with that, sorry. Okay, I'm gonna zoom you in because you gotta see what I got going on here, besides the darkness. My under eyes, obviously, darkness, but you can also see, especially when I look forward, I have a lot of folds in here, okay? I have natural lines, just straight up lines, okay? These are not, I would refer to as wrinkles. They are part of my anatomy that I've had my entire life, okay? So my under eye bag kind of like comes out a bit. My under eye hollow goes in a little bit. It's a little hollow. And so there's sort of this gathering of skin that ends up folding over in certain areas. Yeah, if I stretch it out, you can really see that in here, see where that skin, kind of stretch it out, right in here, okay? So my skin folds over in those areas, okay? So if I place makeup in that area, I will get creasing. It's just gonna happen. The first thing that you need to keep in mind, creasing is normal. If you have creases in your skin, you're gonna get some kind of creasing. It's just your anatomy, okay? It just happens, it's normal. We have faces, they move, okay? You smile, you end up with lines. Now I'm gonna show you things that you can do to kind of help to minimize that, but we shouldn't be completely demonizing that, all right? It's normal to have a face, it's normal to move. We all know that like makeup is a thing. So please just don't like hate yourself for getting creasing. It's not the end of the world. It really isn't, okay? Let's move on. There are a few techniques that you can utilize. I'm gonna show you on one side what you might be doing, and then on this side, I'm gonna be showing you what I do to minimize creasing. So number one, I color correct because obviously I have quite a bit of darkness underneath my eyes. So I use two concealers. I layer two two concealers. I use a slightly warmer concealer to brighten my under eyes so that when I go in with my brightening concealer to do a little bit of brightening and shaping underneath the eyes, I don't end up with that like gray ashy color. And again, I would recommend checking out that video if you don't know what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna be starting off with the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. This is in the shade Nougatine. So I am not going to just swipe this underneath my eyes. I'm gonna put it on the back of my hand. That's number one. Number two, I use a multitude of brushes for this whole situation. Typically, especially for my warmth, the warming of my under eyes, I like to use something small like this. This is my Rephr 14 brush. This was included in my collection with Rephr, so it has the extended handle. The typical one is shorter than this. I like using this brush quite a bit. I don't think that it's available anymore. It's from Sigma, but it is like an eyeshadow brush. It's synthetic, and it works just fine. So you can see kind of like similar sizes. You know, this one's a little bit more of a blending brush. This is a little bit more of like a packing brush. I think it's an eyeshadow brush. Doesn't matter. I'm gonna use the 14 brush today. So I'm gonna dip into the concealer. Now you can see there's quite a bit on the end of that, right? So I'm not just gonna like pick it up and then immediately go into my under eye. I'm gonna kind of like dab it on the back of my hand. So I'm picking it up and then dabbing it so that I'm not going in with way too much, okay? Katie Jane Hughes, if you're familiar with her, this is something that she calls priming the brush. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna avoid taking this all the way up into those creases because they're creases, they are lines. No matter what I do, I'm going to get product creasing in those folds, okay? So I'm gonna focus this just in the hollow of my under eye. And then I'm gonna bring that a little bit into the inner corner. I like using this brush because it's a little bit fluffy. Now, if I feel like, okay, maybe I went in with a little bit too much, I'm just gonna wipe that on the back of my hand. And I'm just gonna buff it gently. Okay. Whatever's left over, I'm just gonna take out here because I have like a little bit of discoloration, but the darkest area of my under eye is like right here and up here, okay? So buffing in the inner corner, taking that up. You can obviously, if you have like a lot of darkness on your lid, you can go in all over your lid. So once again, just gonna buff this so that it's basically clean. Now I'm gonna do this, okay? I'm gonna do this, I gotta stretch it out. I'm just gonna buff around the edge so that I don't get gathering in that area. Okay, so I'm just kind of smoothing, I'm kind of blending that edge, making sure that like there isn't a harsh line before there was like kind of like a distinction between like where I put the concealer and this darkness up here. I'm gonna continue to wipe off my brush and just make sure that I don't have a buildup of product ending up in those lines. Okay? So, big difference, right? Gone in with one concealer. This is like technically my color corrector. Just making sure that it's blended. I wanna make sure it's patted out. But if we compare, this looks very, very natural, you know? We've corrected and concealed my under eye circles. But if you look, when I go like this, I don't have this big buildup of product underneath my eyes, right? Because I'm avoiding that area. There's another technique from Vincent Ford you may have seen where he takes a Q-tip and he'll kind of have his model like squinch up their face like this. So you can really see where those lines are. For instance, I have a line right in here where product can end up building up. And what he'll do is kind of use the Q-tip to kind of like pull product out of that area. And then he'll go in with his ring finger or whatever finger and just kind of pat so that you're just removing the bulk of that product from the area where it tends to settle, okay? That's not necessary for like what I just did. I feel like I don't necessarily have to do it, but if you're not as like light-handed as I am, then that's something that's like a really good like technique for after going in with your concealer. You know, like I already put it down. Oh no, I'm having like a buildup in a certain area. I'm just gonna go in with a Q-tip, remove that, blend it out, okay? Now on this side, I'm gonna do the same kind of thing. I'm gonna use that same brush. And I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm not gonna like super load up my brush. I'm picking it up. I'm gonna tap it off. But this time what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take it all the way up. Okay, so again, focusing it first in the darkest area. And I'm just gonna take it all the way up to my lash line. So again, bringing it in here. And then again, blending the excess out into that like slightly darker outer corner. Now, what do you see the difference? This whole area looks pretty bright, right? However, based on my anatomy, you can kind of see that by bringing the concealer all the way up to my lash line, what it ends up doing is it ends up putting an emphasis on the fact that this area of my eye comes forward and that I have lines here and that this area goes back. Even though we've covered up that the darkness, when we put that concealer only underneath my eye in the darkest hollow of the eye, what we're doing is kind of like creating a similar, we're placing this on the same plane as my cheek, okay? And we're utilizing the darkness that I already have around my eye to help kind of define my eye, right? So my eye is looking more defined over here, whereas on this side, because we've brought it all the way up, my eye is kind of like getting like, you know what I mean? It's looking smaller. It's looking kind of swallowed by the skin around it. Does that make sense? Can you see that difference? Plus, look, we have creasing already gathering up in here, okay? Already, because what? That area is where that skin folds. No matter what I do, I used a small amount, I primed my brush, I'm still gonna get creasing, okay? So this is what I would not do. So let's move on to going in with my concealer now that I've used a correcting concealer. And you can use this with like a peach corrector. It depends on your skin tone, peach, red, orange, whatever, pink, you know. So I'm actually gonna switch up my brush. I've been loving the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin. I think this is the number 3 brush. Really nice, just like angled brush. I use this for my like initial application. Whether you use a brush or a sponge is really up to you. I'm gonna be talking about my sponge in a second because a lot of you have asked about it. But I will say that if you are someone like me who has kind of like a, I don't know, like a deep set inner corner and it's a little bit difficult to work with, using a smaller brush like this little guy, the 14 from Rougher, really, really good, okay? Because even for that, for getting into this inner corner, this brush that I really like from Danessa Myricks, it's too big. I can't get in there without getting makeup all up in my creases, okay? So for my next concealer, to brighten and finish off the whole look, I'm gonna be using Rare Beauty 100W. It's the lightest concealer. It is more warm. Once again, putting it on the back of my hand. Okay, not directly, not going in directly. I'm gonna start with my 14, doing the exact same thing. So picking up a little bit on the tip of the brush, and blending it out on my hand. And then I'm gonna place that in the very inner corner where I get a lot of darkness. I'm using a very, very light hand. I'm wiping it off and I'm just gonna buff because this area is just like impossible to get. Even with the tiniest sponge, even with I have chubby fingers, man. So like even getting in there with my fingers is really difficult. So I'm just gonna buff and then kind of pat to brighten in there. And then I'm gonna grab my Danessa Myricks brush. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. I'm gonna pick up closer to the tip of the brush. You can see right there. Pat on the back of my hand until I feel like it's evenly distributed so that there isn't like a gigantic amount of product in one area. And now I'm going to use this to highlight my under eye. Now you can see, where did I just go? I went on the side of my nose first, okay? I did not go directly underneath my eye. Now the reason for this is because it is so easy to bring product up into your creases. It is so easy. Because I've already used my color corrector to kind of like correct my under eye, and I've already created quite a bit of coverage under there, I don't need to like rely on this necessarily for the coverage. So I'm using a really, really small amount to fake this hollow being one flat plane with this part of my nose and my cheek. Okay, now watch what this does. I'm slowly bringing this up into that hollow, keeping it really, really far from those creases. Up onto the cheekbone. Just blending. Ooh, doesn't that look so nice? I love it. What I've utilized my brightening concealer for is to further create the illusion that the hollow of my under eye is one with this plane, this whole plane, which makes my nose look a little bit slimmer, okay? Brightens this area, kind of fills that area, makes it look a little bit more like full, and creates the illusion that the hollow is on the same plane as this area of my cheek, that it's not further back. You know what I mean? Darkness, contour, shadow means further back in space. Lightness means closer, right? Further forward in space. And just utilizing like the tiniest amount of product. Now, if you've accidentally brought a little bit up too close into the creases, then you can utilize Vincent Ford's trick. You can kind of check like, okay, a little bit migrated. So I'm just gonna use this Q-tip. I like the pointed ones because it gives you a lot of precision. I'm just gonna pull a little bit out of that area. Just pat, gently patting, like literally just, okay, so it's blended. Now on the opposite side, let's do the wrong thing. So I'm gonna prime my brush once again, and I'm going to take this all the way up. I'm gonna do the same thing though. I'm gonna take it along this plane. Use the big brush to go in here. Right? Look how tiny this eye looks. I hate it. It brings so much more attention to like this, which just makes my eyes look more tired. Whereas on this side, to me at least, and I know people have their different preferences, this just makes my eye look more defined. You know, I'm like utilizing the darkness around my eyes to define my eye. And I often do this when I don't wear any eye makeup at all. Now, one of the reasons that I do this is I end up wearing eyeshadow a lot. I like makeup. So I don't necessarily feel like I have to take my concealer all the way up because that darkness doesn't bother me. Either, number one, it defines my eye, or I'm gonna cover it up with eyeshadow anyway, right? Okay, so just applied it right in here. See that? Instant, right in those creases. That amount of product is building up. Now let's pause for a second. If you're not worried about your under eyes, if it's not an area where you have a ton of darkness, then like say, for example, you're worried about your smile lines or maybe lines in your forehead that form over time. You would benefit, I think, the most from utilizing Vincent Ford's trick. Now, that doesn't mean that you can go in with like a ton of product and then do his trick, because if you're putting a ton of product, it's gonna go somewhere as you're moving throughout the day. Even if you're setting it with a powder, which we're gonna get to, it's going to migrate. It just is. Like when we have movement in our faces, then product tends to move around. So if you're someone who has like deep forehead lines or deep smile lines that end up getting creasing, I would highly suggest using Vincent Ford's trick of taking a little Q-tip, removing it from that area, patting it out and then setting so that you're just removing the bulk of the product. But remember to go in with like a nice light amount as well. Now, where a real trick comes in for me is utilizing a setting spray before you utilize a powder, okay? So there are a few different kinds of setting sprays that you can use. Now, one of the things that I talked about, one of the products that I talked about in a recent video, but I will say that I use all of these kind of interchangeably, was the Dalba First Spray Serum. This is like a spray serum. You can see it was separated and then I shook it up. It has kind of like an oil and a mist in one. This is a really beautiful skincare product in general. This video is not sponsored, just so you know. It provides hydration without being oily, okay? Which is really, really important for this because you don't want too much hydration under your eyes. I really, really love this. I truly use these interchangeably. So if you want to use something that's more of like a skincare kind of ingredient or product, I mean, this is really, really great. I lost the cap. I don't know where it went. I also do this with the MAC Fix Plus Stay Over spray. Also don't know where the cap is. I need to get my shit together. This is also really great for this. I also will utilize the Urban Decay All Nighter spray for this. I have a lot of different setting sprays. I will use all of them for this trick. The only thing you don't want to use is a fixing spray. The fixing spray is something that comes way at the end, okay? So I'm talking your Patrick Starr fixing spray. I'm talking your L'Oreal fixing spray. Those you don't want to use for this, okay? You want something that is not going to like, not a hairspray. We're not using like a hairspray, okay? Something that's like slightly hydrating. Now, if you are someone who has extremely dry under eyes, maybe you want to use a more hydrating setting spray, okay? If you're someone who has really, really oily under eyes, you can use a mattifying setting spray for this, okay? So it really depends on like your skin type. Some kind of a spray, some kind of a mist. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use my Linda Hallberg sponge, which a lot of you were super interested in. This is my favorite, I think. I have a few other sponges that I'll talk about, but this is my favorite. I think she totally nailed it. The reason being, look at how tiny this is. Like it has this beautiful tiny point on the top as like a flat edge if you wanna do some like, I don't know, sculpting or whatever. It has obviously the round bottom for foundation and such. And then it has this really nice pointed tip, which is fabulous for getting in and setting my under eyes if you need that point for that precision. Another one that I really like is this is like the 3D HD sponge, I think. This is from Sigma, which is, it's kind of similar. It has some sharper edges. It's so hard to show you with like a black brush on a sponge. I don't know if you can really tell, but it has sharper edges here, which again, like a flat bottom. So you can like kind of use that if you want to do some sculpting. You see that? But it has this really, really nice curve and again, a point at the top, which is also really good. It kind of like lays against the skin. It's a good one. I also like this, but I've been really loving Linda's brush from Alec Cosmetics. So this is a damp sponge. It's slightly damp. When I wring it out, no water is coming out, okay? It's just damp. It's just damp. What I'm gonna do, and I do this a lot. What do I want to use today? It really doesn't matter. I'll use the Fix Plus one. I don't know why I always shake them. I think you need to shake them. I will hydrate my sponge with some of this spray, okay? I'm gonna make sure that I'm working it into the sponge. Now you can do this with a brush. If you hate a sponge, if you like refuse to use sponges, you can also do this with your brush. You can just mist your brush a lot and then pat it out on the back of your hand so that you're kind of like working it in, okay? You don't want any like direct wetness just going like onto your skin. So I'm going to pat this gently over that concealer. You can also, if you feel like, because sometimes when you go in with a clean sponge, it can kind of like pull up product. And if you feel like it's removing too much coverage, you can kind of do the same thing where you like prime your sponge with a tiny bit of product to counterbalance that. So I'll actually do that just to show you. I'm gonna take a small amount of the Rare Beauty concealer, tiniest amount. And I'm just going to pat my sponge into it. It's like literally the smallest amount. I'm just gonna kind of like rub it. And that's gonna help prevent it from like removing product. So I always do this because it really helps to just kind of flatten that area. So I'm just gonna make sure that this is nice and pressed into the skin. Again, you can use a brush. I love a sponge. There's something about the added hydration that just like really does it for me. And this is just one of those steps that just puts, it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It adds hydration, but it sets everything in place before your powder. It's like it's magic. It truly is magic. And I know I got a lot of comments from people saying such when I first talked about this. So now I'm gonna go in and I'm gonna set that under eye. I'm gonna be using my Huda powder. This is in Pound Cake. Now, I personally don't think that there's such thing as like a magic powder that is just going to like fix your under eye creasing. People have their different preferences, but it's more so about the techniques and how you use it. So I am not going to set with a brush, okay? I'm gonna be using a powder puff. I got a bunch of them. What is this one? This one is also from LH. It's really big though, and I'm not gonna use that. Really large. I have some Huda Beauty ones, Tower 28. There's a bunch of them, you know, that exist. This one's from Smashbox. I really like this one because I feel like it's thinner and it's the most pointed. So I'm gonna use that. I'm going to pick up the powder, just going directly in, okay? A lot. I'm gonna tap it off, okay? So we have like that much powder right now, which probably seems like way too much. I am going to pat this out on my hand. I'm gonna make sure that I'm like evenly distributing this all along the point. And then I'm doing that, okay? So patting it off as much as possible. Now, let's make sure that we're nice and smooth. And I'm gonna set. So I'm gently patting that product all underneath my eyes, focusing on those areas where I get creasing. You can see I'm not taking the powder into those lines because I just don't need to. I'm gonna take it down the side of my nose, make sure it's all nice and smooth, okay? Nice and smooth, right? Looks good. What I'm gonna do on this side is I'm not gonna use a puff. I'm gonna use a brush. I don't know why this is, but when I started using a puff, it solved like 50% of my creasing problems, okay? So I'll use a brush that I used to use. This is my MAC 240S brush, which it's a synthetic brush. I don't know if it's for eyeshadow or what, but I used to use this to set my under eyes. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna pick up powder, tap it off so I'm not going in with way too much. Okay, that's how my brush looks. So not ridiculous. I'll use the same sponge and blend this out and then set with a brush so that I can show you, like, at this point you're probably like, oh, what the hell, I'm getting so much creasing. Why is this happening? So I'm gonna blend it out. And then I'm gonna go with my brush. The immediate thing that I notice is just how like this eye is just like, you know, compared to this one. This eye looks so much more like, just like open and defined and kind of like unique and sexy. And this one is just like Popeye, like straight Popeye. You know what I mean? I gotta pee, to be honest with you. I'm gonna go do some stuff. I'm gonna come back and I'll show you what's up with this stuff. I'll show you what is up. I was gone for maybe 3 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes, no more than 5. I had to pee and then I went downstairs to get a package. So it hasn't been a long time. Let's take a look at what is up. The good side. How are we feeling? Looking good, looking nice and smooth, right? I like it. This side, you see that? This gathering in here that's already started. Do you see that? Bad, okay? This area down here might look okay for these like 3 to 5 minutes, but I can tell you right now, especially as I'm moving around, the technique that I used over here, I'm gonna get a lot of gathering. Now this is how I used to do my under eyes. I didn't take it all the way up, but I would, just kind of go in and blend it out with a sponge and then set with a brush. And at the end of the night, I would come home and I would be like, why do I have so much creasing? Why? Then I started doing this, where I set it with a puff and I would utilize some kind of a mist. And that stopped happening. And I was shocked. The wearability of this technique is unbelievable. And I know from my first video where I mentioned this technique, and I got so much feedback from a lot of you who tried it for the first time and you were like, I don't understand. It's like magic. It really is. It's very, very helpful. So I really hope that this was helpful for you. Please, 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 please don't hate your anatomy. If you have deep lines in a certain area that need coverage, like maybe you have a dark spot that's like in your smile line or your forehead line, you have to kind of make a decision. Do I want to deal with like intense creasing and cover that thing? Or do I want a little less coverage and not to have to deal with creasing throughout the day? It's kind of like a balance. We have to accept that makeup can only do so much, and you're putting it on a moving face, okay? You're moving, you're making expressions. It's fine. Like a little bit of creasing in certain areas is perfectly acceptable. If you're having intense creasing and you don't understand why, then you want to look at your skincare, you want to look at your skin prep, you want to look at obviously the types of formulas that you're using. Do they work with your skin type? Are you oily? Are you dry? Do you need something that's more hydrating or maybe a thinner formula? So there's a lot to look at. Unfortunately, there is a lot of trial and error that only you can do, but I hope that overall these little tricks helped. Please let me know if you give them a shot, and if they do, I would love to hear that. And let me know if there are any other videos in this vein that you either need an update on, or I don't know, maybe there's something that I haven't touched on. I feel like I've touched on a lot when it comes to this subject, but yeah. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, comment, like, become a member. I said comment. Oh, turn on notifications? I don't know. And I will see you in the next one.